G'day guys, and welcome to World of Tanks with the Magnificent Margon. Today is the ANZAC tribute. So I'll kick things off quickly and then I'll go into a bit more detail about all this. I will be having a short minute of silence during this time as well. So I'm going to read just a small paragraph from the ode and then have the last post play as well. So yeah, they shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down the sun, and in the morning we will remember them, lest we forget. Okay guys, well thank you for sitting there quietly just looking at the slides more or less in silent mode. Basically the idea of the minute of silence is basically to sit there and think about, well, the soldiers that didn't come home, as well as for your family, and soldiers or people who were involved in your family that went to war, whether they served in any of the Great Wars or whether they served in recent time wars like Iraq, and whatever other wars, Vietnam, or even if they just served in services themselves. It's just one of those things where it's meant to be a representation. Now, it used to be a 2 minutes of silence. Why it was cut back to a minute, I don't know. I'd have to look into that. But it used to be 2 minutes of silence. Now, basically, Anzac Day was founded on sort of two different times. 30th of April 1915 was news of the landing reached New Zealand, so they actually had a half-day holiday, which was declared basically improperly for the service, and services were sort of mildly helped. In South Australia, 8th-hour day, which I don't really know what it is. I haven't read about that. So I'm sure I'll probably get people saying comments if they do watch this. The 13th of October 1915, which was then renamed Anzac Day. But in 1916, it was basically marked widely by ceremonies and services across Australia and New Zealand on the 25th of April, which then became the official day of Anzac Day. And it was basically that year, that was the first sort of anniversary year that everyone declared, okay, this is the Anzac Day. And like, we remember it here in Australia at 11 o'clock. Now, I believe that 11 o'clock was actually when the landing happened at Gallipoli. Now, Gallipoli happened on the 25th of April, and basically it was on the peninsula. Planned by Winston Churchill to open a way to the Black Sea for the Allied forces. If you know your regionals around there and things like that, you'll be able to work out pretty quickly where the Black Sea is and stuff like that, and everything else. So in it, now I heard today, I never actually heard anyone say this before, but really the landing at Gallipoli was probably one of the biggest disasters for the Alliance that sort of pulled off in the end, and it was lucky. In total, there was probably about 21. Well, the casualties included. There was 21,255 from the United Kingdom, an estimated 10,000 dead soldiers from France, 8,700 from Australia, 2,700 from New Zealand, and 1,300 from British India at the time, as it was known. Now it's just known to everyone as India. So yeah, basically it was not good. It was probably the worst but best outcome for the Alliance forces at that time. Yeah, it's one of those things where we just walked into a firing squad, and they were well dug in, and we were just sheep running around the beaches. So now, if you don't know, ANZAC actually stands for Australian New Zealand Army Corps, and that's just the way that it's been translated. So it's actually quite interesting that back then, so many, nearly 100 years ago, they used acronyms like we use Laugh Out Loud, which is LOL, or Ruffle, or OMG, and things like that. So really, you can look at it as this is probably one of the first sort of acronym-based wording. So yeah, amazingly enough, Australia and New Zealand may have been, in my opinion, probably some of the first. Now, I'm sure there are other people that have used acronyms to make words that sound out things in the past, but this is probably one of the first ones that I know about anyway, and I'm sure there's many, many more. So yeah, the idea is everyone in Australia and New Zealand remembers on this day, and I do encourage that maybe not only that we do it, like there are Australians that live all over the world that do mark the day in their own ways as well. Train of thought's gone, typical. So yeah, and well, that's what the minute of silence is for. It's there to remember all the heroes that have fallen, whether they're recent, whether they're old, and maybe even to come. Like, we just never know. Some crazy person might decide to go on a rampage again, and we all have to take arms, or bear arms, as they say in America. So I am actually down the track will become a Cascadian for the family, and wear medals, and probably will march in Remembrance Days. Both my grandparents have served in different ways. My granddad on my mother's side served on a minesweeper for the British Royal Navy. My other granddad served in the Australian Army, and I think he was a clerk. I don't know a lot about what he did. I do know that he served in Vietnam, but I don't know whether he has spoken to my father or whether he's spoken to other members of the family about what he did and what he was involved in over there, but he has never really spoken to me directly about it. So I don't know a lot about him now. My other granddad on my mum's side, well, he's told us different stories and things like that, and we've seen pictures of him in his military uniform. And growing up as a kid, when my younger brother sort of got older, he actually started to look like Granddad more and more in some of his photos when he was younger. And my mum always actually joked around and said, "Oh, maybe we should get a Navy uniform to put on my brother, just so he can have a picture. Mum can have a picture of my brother along with Granddad, and sort of say, oh look, they look similar," and they do very much look similar. So yeah, so I do, and I will be remembering my grandfather, and for what he did for our country and served as a veteran in Vietnam. I'm sure my great-granddads in some way or another were involved, probably in the Great Wars. I know that World War One was declared as the war to end all wars, which we all know is a crock of baloney. Shite. And shortly after, a few years later, we had, well, not a few years, quite a few years, we had World War Two, and then we had all the other wars after it that followed. So it's one thing, and I think it's more or less we can understand that war is something that well, us as men and humans are prone to do. Like recently, we've got stuff happening over with the Russians and the Ukrainians over in Europe, basically, and it's not a war, but it's a tension-like war and things like that. And for whatever reason it happens, and there's many different ways. I only sort of recently worked out that, well, I just saw briefly, just having a look at the book, that World War One was started by an assassination. Like, gee, imagine if, for instance, if JFK was assassinated by another culture. Gee, that would be just disastrous. Could you imagine that? We would have the Americans going on a rampage. So, basically, they're the nitty gritty bits. So I do encourage you all to remember. Now, I know I haven't got any Australian tanks in this video, really. Like, the closest I had really is the Carnarvon, which is the one I just played and you just saw blow up. Now, the only thing is, I don't have a lot of tanks. Our main tank that happened quite a fair bit in Australia was the Leopard 1. I'm under attack. My cat's about trying to steal my dinner. So I'll have to, I wish this would hurry up and finish. But anyway, so I will probably work on getting a Leopard 1 for next year. The German tank, they use the M3 Stuarts. They also use the Universal Carrier. The Universal Carrier was more or less used as a training vehicle for getting into the M3 Stuart and things like that. So we can all look at that way, like a thing like that. But like, it's only been in sort of the recent times the Leopard tank has been decommissioned. So really, if you look at it, I don't know when the Leopard tank came into commission, but right up till now, the Australians did use them in our Defence Force for quite a long time. And they were used for different things. I think now I've read somewhere we've got tanks called Bushmasters, M113 or 5, something like that, MA115. I'm sure someone will correct me on it. And different things like that. So they're more of the modern tanks. I was trying to find out a bit more information off Wikipedia. Now Wikipedia is not always accurate, but it can give you a pretty good idea. There it is. M1A1 Abraham is what we are basically using at the moment, I believe, or we have used anyway. And they do look very similar to probably the Carnarvon design, things like that. So now they're an American tank. Why not? Americans do make decent tanks and things like that. And the other ones that we do have are more or less just like vehicles with machine guns shoved on top of them, sort of thing. Or they're just armoured personnel carriers. So yeah, if you like my stuff, guys, please like my video. Please pay your respects. If you want to subscribe to my channel, please do. I do put up videos every day. I know I'm putting a lot of World of Tanks up, and I will try to expand out as next year goes by and stuff like that. So we'll see how we go. But yeah, I have a Facebook page. My email I haven't looked at. I'm using this as a catch-up point right now. So yeah, I guess happy hunting, guys. Enjoy your Remembrance Days, whatever you may do, March or whatever, and I'll catch you next time.